brings us to an experience that is so far beyond what we are comfortable with, what we understand, what feels normal, what feels safe, that we really have to sit in with this fear of like death, essentially.
Welcome to the Phase 4 podcast, inspired by Vishen Lakiani and Ajit Nawalkar, co-founders of EverCoach, a division of Vine Valley. In this podcast, we speak to coaches and creatives about where they were, where they are, and where they are going. This is the intersection of what we focus on expands, and your story is your superpower. Ben Milston is the Mindset Metamorphosist. He supports those stuck in depression and anxiety to find hope, happiness, and love. And he helps people get away from the traditional healing modalities that just are mainstream and might not work. Today, we're going to talk about that and much more. And Ben, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here with you all.
Yeah, definitely grateful. And I've been following your journey for a bit and I love it. There's a lot of similarities. I think mindset, I think our stories from there to here and stories of growth are really inspiring, important, and important for other people to hear. And so maybe I'd like to begin with just how did you end up becoming the Mindset Metamorphosis?
Yeah, well, my journey began, I guess when I was a teen growing up, I really started internalizing what was the world supposed to be, what my life was supposed to be. And this all came from the ideas of what I was growing up being told by my parents, from my schooling, from TV and society, of having a good job and needing money and needing to do well in school, and all these ideas about what is considered success, right? And so therefore I equaled success to happiness. And also growing up in a quite academic family, I had these feelings of, okay, I need to do well academically in order to be someone. It was always this idea of not who am I now, but I need to become someone else, someone that is expected of me for my family and society and whatever else. So going through with these ideas, I put a lot of pressure on myself to be someone that I wasn't. And it's really difficult to be someone you're not consistently, day in and day out. Yeah, funny enough. And so this kind of turned into people-pleasing patterns, which I would constantly be looking towards friends at school, other people, how I can fit in, how can I belong, how can I be the person that they want me to be, or what I expected, what I thought that they wanted me to be. And this put more and more pressure in on, okay, am I saying the right things? Am I doing the right things? Is everything in my life going in the direction of what I think is needed in order to be the person that I felt I needed to become? And essentially all of this ended up, this internalized kind of understanding, this overthinking, this overanalyzing, this fear of judgment and fear of rejection led to, by the time I was about 15, heavy depression. I started getting on antidepressants. I started self-medicating. By about 17, I was cutting myself. I attempted suicide twice. And this went on for about a decade or so. And while I was struggling internally, it wasn't something that I wanted the world to see. It wasn't something I wanted, to let out to my family. It wasn't something that I felt proud about. And I felt that, it was a weakness to be experiencing. And no one else seemed to be dealing with, depression or anxiety or feeling down. Everyone else seemed to be succeeding. It was just me that wasn't. And I didn't want to let anyone else know that it was just me that was, failing at life, essentially. And so, I struggled in the shadows and behind closed doors until it got to a point where I finished school and I lost a lot of friends just because I wasn't able to keep up, and I didn't get the grades that I was hoping for, and so I was sure that I was just not gonna, ever, how could I ever become successful? How could I ever become happy? I was diagnosed with learning difficulties and ADD and dyslexia, and it was like, well, evidently I can't become happy. I can't learn. I can't do any of this. You've just diagnosed me with a whole bunch of learning difficulties and problems. And this kind of just perpetuated the identity that I had, that I wasn't good enough, cut out for this world. I wasn't going to be able to become the person that I needed to be in order to be fulfilled and successful and happy and loved. And that was just kind of the feelings that took me, up until about 23, 24. I moved countries. I joined the army. I became more religious. I wanted to do anything to essentially get out of the pain I was experiencing without actually ending my life, because I was like, certain, I don't want my life to end. I want the pain to end. No idea how to do that. The drugs weren't working. The therapy wasn't working. The moved countries, that didn't seem to everything kind of caught up with me. I joined the army to try and became more religious, looking for purpose and belonging in a higher power. But again, that was just ways to try and change my external world when still internally I was feeling down. I was feeling, unseen. I was feeling unheard. I didn't know what my purpose was, what my direction was. And it came to a point where I got an injury in the army. I was bedridden for about 2.5 months. I had just broken up with a girlfriend, and I was just spiraling down this rabbit hole again when I read my first book in self-development. And that kind of ignited the idea of, okay, I have these thoughts that have a impact on the way that I'm feeling and internalizing my experience of the world. These thoughts are the things that are created inside that actually help me to understand what is happening outside. And I noticed that I had a very negative thought pattern. I noticed I had a very destructive thought pattern, that it was very one-sided, all the I can'ts, all the I'm not good enough, or it's impossible, or everything that I was thinking essentially dictated everything that I was feeling. And everything I was feeling dictated what my behavior was, and that just perpetuated the life I was experiencing. So if we kind of just quickly zoom from that moment, that was kind of the first shift where I would say my metamorphosis began, when it was this aha moment of, if my thoughts had gotten me to the brink of suicide and had led me to this point that was so low, then what if it was my thoughts that could take me out of it? What if it was my thoughts that could put me out to an empowering world, a beautiful world? I began to play with it. I began to test the waters of, okay, what can I start thinking? What do I want to start thinking? How do I want to start believing different things to test the waters of what kind of experience I want to experience in this world? So that was really the turning point for my metamorphosis, my transformation.
Wow. That's definitely what we focus on, experiencing from both sides, right? I'm glad you're here because this is important. I'm glad you shared that too, because people can relate to that. It's not just, hey, this guy's a coach, now he's doing the thing. There's a story behind it. There's a story behind the person. And that helps you not only sympathize with someone, use the tools that you're going to share with us later, but it helps you empathize with someone. And something I'm hearing in your story is almost, correct me if I'm wrong, but you always felt like you shouldn't be doing what you were doing, but you were just doing it to please the people around you or just to step into that role. And you were always looking for something yourself. You were looking to find yourself in the army. You're looking to change countries. Maybe I'll find it there. But you always had this hope, even though there was depression and you couldn't probably see it at the time. But now looking back, I'm wondering if you think that you always had that hope to look for the answers?
Yeah, I think we innately as humans want to understand what this reality is. We all want to understand, what we're experiencing, because this is an experience, that we are having personally, internally, a unique experience that we want to try and understand what is going on. What is it that we are experiencing through these five senses, right? And I think for a lot of people, that kind of curiosity starts at birth and childhood, and we're playing around with certain ideas about what is possible, what is impossible, what can I do, what can't I do as reality, testing the waters. And then it gets to a point where we get to an age where we're just kind of told, this is the way things are. This is what reality is. This is what reality isn't. This is what you can do. This is what you can't do. This is good. This is bad. This is right. This is wrong. Go and go. And I think from then, for a lot of people, we get stuck in this feeling. I know for myself, stuck in this feeling of, I need to do things the way that I believed life was. It didn't occur to me that life could be lived any other way than the way that mainstream society had told me it needed to be lived. And so it was only coming out of that, was it like, wait a minute, this experience of life can actually be lived and experienced in, pretty much next to infinite ways of personalized experiences, other than just what I'm told. This is how you need to experience. This is what you need to do. And you go to university, and you get married, and you have kids, and you have a good job, and you save for your pension, and that is life.
I'm like, yeah. At the end, it's 65. Then you can go on a trip somewhere.
Yeah, right. And that realization of like, that's not life. That is a way that you can live, but that's not what life is. That's not the essence of what life is. And I think that was the biggest kind of, or one of the biggest kind of realization. I've had a lot of really big realizations in my life, but that was one of the biggest realizations that I had, that there's a big difference between how we live and what life is.
Yeah, big time. And it's all the box, right? You put yourself inside the box. Society and parents, teachers, they all help you get inside the box, and they describe the box, but we jump in it and then we think that's it. I was very similar to that, where I would say it more like a fixed mindset, growth mindset, where I didn't know. I just thought this is what you do. And we got these row of cookie cutter houses, all the guys the same age. We get to 2 kids, 2 dogs, 2 cars. And then you see them all in the garage. They're all just drinking beer every night. And I'm like, okay, this must be what it is, because everybody's doing it. Not realizing, no, we can make it up how we want, and we're not stuck ever. So thank you for that. What was the book? Is it Untethered Soul?
No, but I do have that here.
Oh, nice. When you were describing it, I was like, that sounds like the Untethered Soul.
Yeah, I'm actually reading that again. Fantastic book. That was the Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great one. Wow, that's a crazy book for your first, it's a boom, right away, throw you right in the fire. That's a great book. Anyone listening, go check it out. And if you've already read it, go read it again. It's a really good book.
Yeah, and it really, it really was, I think, those kind of like first kind of aha moments of really of just there's a separation between, just the conditioned kind of thought patterns and belief systems that we have, to then creating that space, like you said in the Untethered Soul, creating that space between, there's like a consciousness that is experiencing, that's the one that is like behind experiencing life. And then there's just the programming that's helping it along the way. And we want to find where we are within that and not lose ourselves in the programming per se.
Yeah, for sure. So you do go through all this dark night of the soul that lasts a really long time. And then you come through, you start learning about the power of now, all these other kinds of books, and you start developing yourself and start remembering who you are, who you want to be before society whipped it out of you. And then, so what happens from there?
Yeah, so my journey kind of, when I really wanted to, break free from the kind of belief systems that I'd grown up in. I left kind of society for about 2 years. I lived in a tent in a forest with a small community for about 2 years. I hitchhiked around Europe for a couple months, like sleeping in forests and parks and on the road, and dumpster diving food from the bins, only not because like I didn't necessarily have the money for it or whatever. I just wanted to put myself in these extreme situations of testing, like, can I still be happy if I'm not spending money? Can I still be happy if I'm stuck in the rain? Can I still be happy if I'm spending all day waiting for a hitchhike and no one's picking me up? You know, at what point do I feel like I break down because it's all, blaming everyone else? They're not picking me up. What's wrong with them? How could he know? Can't he see that I'm here? Blah, blah, blah. But rather, well, what is it within me that is grounded? What is it within me that is, finding solace and happiness and peace when I'm surrounded by a chaotic world? And I think that allowing myself to go through those experiences was really important for me, because it really helped to solidify the kind of ideas that I'd been reading about in these books. Right, I could experience them. And from there, I went back to Australia for a bit. I met my now wife. We went hitchhiking in South America and caravanning, and all the time just kind of doing, random jobs here and there to continue fruit picking and working in cafes and restaurants and making jewelry on the side and selling them in markets. And at no point did I ever know what it was I wanted to do, but I was also kind of reserved of, okay, this is what I'm doing now, and this is who I am now. And there wasn't a thought of like, am I not succeeding? I was happy with my life, living it without the feelings of needing to live up to a society that didn't actually care for who I was as a person or care for how I was doing. So why was I trying to impress them? And I actually came across, I wanted to do this about 2 years ago now, a NLP course just for myself, as just to continue the growth. And I came across coaching, and then it was kind of this like click of, wow, I've been on this journey for like 10 years. I've done meditation retreats. I've done like plant medicine. I've done like a lot of different work on myself and different holistic modalities and different, levels of spiritual and personal growth. And this is something that I can help fast track people so they don't need to go on this 10-year crazy worldwide trip, putting themselves in these extreme, situations. I can, help people cut the chase and come to certain realizations without the need of necessarily leaving, the room or wherever, the Zoom call. And that kind of idea for me was really exciting, was really empowering. And that's kind of how I started my coaching journey. So
Yeah, it sounds like a much better book than like an accountant graduating from university and then spending 40 years in the same company. Your journey sounds way better, trying all the things, doing like you're experiencing life, and that's what we're here for, right? And some people wish they could do it, but they keep themselves in that same box because their mom or their teacher or somebody told them, no, you got to stay here. You're in a union or you're getting a pension like you're talking about. But yeah, I love the way you do it. And meditation retreats, plant medicine. I'd love to go into that for a bit if you want. And you said other modalities, maybe share some of what those are, and then we'll move towards your coaching and if you use some of those in your coaching.
yeah, 100%. And I just want to touch on what you said for a second, where other people wish they could do that, but don't, because they're stuck in those kind of like thought patterns and those beliefs of, and this is something I hear so often. Oh, I would love to do that, but I've got X, Y, Z. I've got this job, or, I'm so jealous. You can do all that. I was like, what do you mean jealous? Like, you can do all that. I just chose to step into that fear and that unknown. And yes, it was scary. And yes, I was doubting myself. And I was thinking, while I was in the road and getting rained on and whatever, like, what the hell am I doing? But I did it. I wasn't stuck in that kind of fear of, well, what if, until the end of the life of, well, that sucks. I didn't do that. Because then what?
Yeah.
He said,
well, I mean, with that fear, you go through the fear and then it just kind of silences or fades away because you realize, actually, that wasn't that scary and I made it and I'm here now.
Well, that's it. And the thing with most fear is that the thought patterns that we have surrounding the fear are a lot more scary than the actual event. You know, we're very good at like picking any kind of worst case scenario and just delving in to like the nitty gritty of the absolute worst case scenario that could possibly happen and just forgetting about every other possible scenario, more likely scenarios, best case scenarios. You know, there's so many things that we can focus our attention on, but for some reason, as just historically speaking, and what we're being trained to do and taught, you know, with our subconscious, that we gravitate towards, well, this is the worst case scenario, and these are all the possible worst case things. And so what often can happen is we focus our attention on those situations. We focus on all the things that could go wrong and leading up to those things. And while we focus on that, we're more likely to help create that kind of, you know, reality. We're more likely to step into that because we're so focused on that almost as the goal. And so when that kind of happens, then we confirm, yeah, I knew this was going to happen, not for me.
Yeah. You want to hear a good story about that? Oh my God.
Hey.
It depends on your belief system, but we moved just outside the city, out into the country about 5 years ago, and we moved around January, the middle of January, and it was like snowy, and all the roads are bad up here when it's snowy. And so my sister's like, "I'm not coming to see your new house until the spring," and we're like, "Okay." I kind of had an idea why, but I was like, "Why not?" She's like, "I'm just afraid of getting in an accident, and so I'm not gonna go and check out your brand new house." Anyway, she's sitting in her house in the city. She lives on a main road, and a car drove right through her living room window. Like a car came right through her house. And I'm like, see, that's because you're so scared. Like that's how attached to the fear. The emotion is so high, so it's manifest. She's like, I don't know, but I'm like, whoa, I don't know. It depends on your belief. But I was like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And that's, you know, on the one hand, you can say, oh, that was coincidence. On the other hand, you could say, well, what if it wasn't coincidence? What if there's something there? Let's look into that. And that's what I think, you know, differentiates people who say, all the good things that happened in my life were luck, and all the bad things is because I deserved it, you know? And then it's like, why are we looking at the good things being luck and bad things as you deserve it? Like, how can we flip that narrative? But yeah, going back to what you said before, other modalities that I've tapped into, also just like I do a lot of breath work for myself and meditation, and I think one of the biggest things that I really work with is just understanding. I love understanding how people internalize their reality, how people perceive their reality. You know, for the same reason that two people can experience the same exact event, but one person will get offended and the other person won't. Or that one person will think that was a good outcome, the other person will think that's a bad outcome. And so that shows us that the outcomes themselves are neither good or bad or here or there. You know, it's the way that we are thinking about it, the way that we feel about it, that creates essentially our experience of what is happening. And I love, you know, going into people's thoughts and really delving into, well, how do you experience your world?
Yeah.
And I think that kind of those types of perceptions and understandings, I've gotten a lot of insight through just doing a lot of meditation myself, and you know, also working with plant medicine, opening up to different kinds of perceptions and realities, and yeah.
Yeah. In Hamlet, Shakespeare says that a thing is neither good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And so it's whatever you attach. And to your example, Joe Dispenza talks about it beautifully when he says about a soldier coming back from the war with no leg. One of them's so depressed that they want to kill themselves because they have no leg. And the other one's so happy that they're home because they could have died. And the
Yeah.
exact same thing happened, but it's just your response to it. So I love it.
Yeah, funny. He was the first name that came up when you spoke about the car coming into the window. You know, he goes into a lot of the science behind manifestation. So
Yeah. And so plant medicine, I was just watching, I don't know if you know Steve Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, but he's He's a British guy. He's like Shark Tank or something like that. But anyway, he's got a good podcast. Check it out, Diary of a CEO. But he had this guy on he's one of the doctors that helped write the DSM, Diagnostic Service Manual, which psychiatrists and counseling refers to for treatment. The guy who wrote the book, he didn't write the whole book, he wrote part of it, but he's saying maybe he was wrong about some things. And he was saying the way that we counsel people and the way we interview people in counseling and psychiatry sessions, he said that plant medicine, in his opinion, is the biggest revolution he's ever seen, and the effects are staggering. And this guy, just go check it out. It was just the other day, but it was like, wow, there's a guy who wrote the book, and we're still teaching this book like that. And he's saying, no, we need to switch it up and do this. He's saying more just listening and talking and connecting with people instead of like treating and like everything's wrong, right? Like you're starting with, you're saying perception. So then you're automatically starting from the negative. We're like, well, what's good? Like, is it always bad? There's got to be something good. So when I heard you talk about plant medicine, I recalled that video. And so, yeah, tell us a bit more about plant medicine or even meditation retreats, or is it all together? Or?
Yeah, well, the plant medicine that I did was when I was in the Amazon in Brazil and also in Peru with the tribes there, and that it was just it's a really intense experience that I think one of the biggest things is that it allows you to sit in with a lot of the fear that we have. Essentially, what it all stems down with is the fear of death, right? And when we look at our world and what we're comfortable with, we kind of perceive things as like, okay, I know my house, I know this area, I know this familiar route to work, whatever. This is like what's going to keep me safe. This is the area of my life that I'm happy continuing with, even if you're not happy with it, but your subconscious is telling you like, I'm okay with continuing this life because this is what I understand will keep me alive. This has kept me alive in the past. This is going to keep me alive in the future. And we can be completely, depressed and unhappy and unfulfilled. But if it's kept you alive in the past, the subconscious is going to help you to say, no, just keep doing more of that. It's kept you alive. It's familiar. It's, it's not in this scary unknown. Keep doing that. And essentially what happens with these plant medicines, which the chemical within them is DMT, which is the only natural chemical that our brain releases naturally just before we die, which can also explain a lot of like near experiences and whatnot. But the idea is that it brings us to an experience that is so far beyond what we are comfortable with, what we understand, what feels normal, what feels safe, that we really have to sit in with this fear of like death, essentially. Sit in with this fear of like, can I just like breathe through this and work through this and move past, knowing that I'm going like, it's okay to also die and not feel so like that is the end of the world, so to speak, which is this crazy kind of concept. And I think that, there's a connectedness to everything outside of our own being, our own kind of sense of ego and our sense of identity, and just a realization experientially that, and similarly, I had in these 10-day silent meditation retreats that I did, this experiential knowledge, feeling of we are this universe, there's all this energy, like this is us, it's running through us, it's a part of us, it is us, there's no separation. One of the biggest issues I have with religion as it is now is this idea of like God is up there and we're here and he's inside of us, but God is everything. It says that God is it's like there's no separation. And I think that our sense of identity and our ego has separated itself from everything else. And that's where we get this separation of good and bad and right and wrong and all these ideas on who I need to be versus who I am versus who they want me to be. It's because we're constantly trying to separate who I am versus who everything else is, who everyone else is. And these experiences help me to also just feel experientially that there isn't this separation that we're taught. You know, that there is. It's just a fluid energy that is just, we're just perceiving it differently because of how we've been brought up to believe and to think. And that's really the only reason why we're seeing something is different, just based on those kinds of, the way that we perceive it.
Yeah, I love it. I feel connected, like way out. I can get my own attention way out of this universe. And like, I'm sure you could do the same, but once you start feeling that connectedness to nature, and I'm part of the ground, the tree, and we're all like one, man, it's such a better life, right?
Yeah, and it's empowering because then you realize you don't need to go at this alone. You don't need to try and struggle with these heavy human emotions that are self-created when they don't need to be experienced.
Yeah, for sure. The Maya, right? The illusion of everything. It's all an illusion. I don't teach, I facilitate groups for chronic pain, anxiety, and depression. And it's hard to get it across, but like the I, me, my, or the you, we, they, them, us. Like if you can stop the I, me, my, your pain will automatically diminish the second you start putting your attention on other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think, a lot of work that I do understanding why people think the way that they think is because once we break down those thoughts and those beliefs, then we can start to realize that nearly all the thought patterns and belief systems that we have at the moment aren't ours, aren't, given, like they were given to us either by parents or society or our schooling teacher, whatever else. And a great example of that I love is, a couple hundred years ago, it was considered morally good and okay and acceptable to burn witches at the stake, and that doesn't mean that it is good or bad. That's just what they grew up understanding was right and what they felt was good and so that's what they did. And so if you were brought up in that era and you were taught that witches were bad and these women were bad and whatever else, and they were the devil and that there's no reason to believe otherwise until at some point someone challenges it, comes to a question of like, wait a minute, maybe this isn't the case. Maybe there isn't this satanic kind of practice. Maybe maybe these are women. Maybe they just had difference of opinions. Maybe they have different experiences. And then we take back this idea of, okay, so people can have different experiences without being crazy. Like one of the things that gets to me the most with a lot of depression, anxiety is the rest of the world kind of being like, oh, if you experience that, you're crazy. All right, it's the classic. And so for spirituality, a lot of times people, experiencing spirits or hearing voices or whatever, but the majority of the world are still looking at a book where people heard voices. They said it was the voice of God. They had dreams that they then went and led armies. If we had a dream now and someone's like, I need to lead an army into XYZ country, you'd be like, you're crazy. But back then, you're listening to God, So we need to have this an understanding of where do we lie with the information that we're being fed from thousands of years ago. Where do we lie with the information that we're currently holding on to, and what do we actually feel is true and just in the type of direction that we want to take.
Yeah, 100%. The one you're talking about, witches, I also use like lightning for that same idea, right? Lightning would be so scary, and now we're harnessing electricity to feed water to certain places. And then the other one, the sun, right? We used to think this Earth was in the middle, like for thousands of years. The Earth's in the middle, and then we're like, maybe it's not. And then so you change as we evolve and grow. And so who's crazy? The people now, the people there. I don't know, but I like it.
Who was it in all of history that was like telling us these things as facts? It was the educated ones. It was the scientists. It was the nurses. It was the, the doctors and the whatever else. And I'm not saying that there's everything's wrong with the education system or the professionals. I'm not by any means saying that. I'm just saying that we need to be really careful when we use the word fact and truth, when these were all facts. The earth was flat, fact, truth. That was the case. That was the reality until it wasn't. And so if we can just open ourselves up to the possibility of anything, then I think that will give us a lot more grounding, a lot more hope that this isn't the way that the world is. It's just the way that we believe the world to be. So let's believe something else
Yeah.
if we want.
Yeah, for sure. On this show, especially, I talk to so many people with different energy modalities, and some of them, I don't know, I don't understand, I don't get it, but I don't like that person is definitely feeling it, seeing it, doing it. I have no doubt about that. And just because I can't see it, it doesn't mean that it's not there.
Yeah, if the whole world was blind except for a few people who could see, would they be crazy? Be like, oh my God, you're talking about colors. That's not a thing. What do you mean you can see? I don't, just because we can't understand someone else's experience doesn't mean that they're not experiencing it and therefore it's real in their world. Everything that someone experiences is 100% real for them. And that comes down to also our beliefs. For the person who believes in God, God is real, 100%, no doubt. The person who doesn't believe in God, God isn't real, no doubt. For them, God isn't real. And it's comes down to, it's as simple as that depending on what we believe, it doesn't matter what the absolute objective truth is, because we can't prove it anyway. All we can prove and all we can understand is what we experience in our own reality. And if that's all that we can connect, really understand, if that's all that really matters at the end of the day is our own personal, unique experience and how we connect with everything outside of us, well, then I think it's really important that we take the time to just question, well, what beliefs are like really damaging for me right now? Is the belief of hell improving my sense of well-being, or is it helping me, causing me to live in fear? Do I have any proof whatsoever that that's a thing other than what other people believe? Is this the type of life that I want to work towards? Or is this something that's causing me to live out a life that I'm unfulfilled with? And I'm not to say that if you're to believe in hell, that's fine. You're entitled to believe in hell by all means. But what I want to encourage is to just question whether or not it's supporting you, those beliefs.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. It's so important, right? Because there's like you started off earlier saying something that there's not just one way, there's more than one way. And so that's that. So you brought us from first thing we need to know is that we're aware of what our challenge, what we want, what we don't want, what we're doing. Awareness is number one. Then those thoughts, where are they coming from? What are your beliefs? Are they your beliefs? Do they still serve you today? Do you need to let go of them? That sounds like part of the last little bit of the conversation. And then what comes next once you do that?
So yeah, and so the next, it's funny that you put in those orders, because that's exactly the way that my kind of program set out is like uncover, which is just the awareness of what we need to be aware of. And like you said, without the awareness, we've got nothing. We're just in that zombie mode. And then we got the discover. We want to discover, what those triggers are, what areas of ourselves are being triggered by the things around us, by our own, thought patterns. And then we want to start saying like, okay, how can we rewire the thought patterns that we currently have and the belief system that we belong to? And so I think, that next step is really just saying, well, what feels right to us? If we take out everything that other people have said and we take out, what we've believed up until now to be true and right and whatever, what feels right to you? What feels in alignment with you? What feels empowering? What feels fulfilling? What feels happy for you personally? Not for anyone else, for you personally. Because at the end of the day, when someone says, oh, I want to be happy, wonderful. What is happy? What does that mean for you? On what level of happy do you want to say? I want to be happy. Do I feel like I'm the happiest I could ever be? I hope not. I hope I can become more happy, you know? Um, and so, so I think that like there's this understanding of we really want to understand within our personal unique like slice of our reality, well, what does fulfillment feel like for you? What is success for you? What is happiness for you? What kind of thoughts would the person that you imagine being fulfilled and successful and happy, what kind of thoughts would they have? Right? What kind of belief systems would they have? And then we're essentially, bridging the gap of, okay, well, if they're thinking like this and they're feeling like this, then they're going to act in a certain way, right? Right now, if you're thinking like this and you believe like this, that's going to create specific feelings that you currently have of, say, depression or anxiety, insecurities, self-doubt, fears. And that's going to cause you to behave in certain ways of not taking action or procrastination or the self-sabotage, whatever else. So we want to understand, well, why is there a gap between the person who thinks happy and lives that happy life to where we're at now?
Right. And then filling that gap is you have to become the person that you want. And what would they do and start doing those things?
Totally. Like if we look at Elon Musk, for example, like or any successful entrepreneur, they're a successful entrepreneur in their head before they become successful. No successful entrepreneur, no businessman, whatever, millionaire is like becomes a millionaire and then is like, I think I can do it. I think I'm a millionaire, Uh, they first envision themselves as a millionaire. They first see it happening. They picture the business and what it looks like and how it feels. And, they can taste it and they can smell it and they can, experience it. And then that drives them to go out and create it. And they fail and fail and fail and fail until they go out and learn from those mistakes and those, falls and they, whatever else. And they keep going until they make it. The same as a kid who's learning to walk. A kid keeps standing up and learning to walk until they know how to walk. They don't just fall and give up. They don't think in their head, I've fallen a few times. I'm obviously not meant to walk. I'm not cut out for this world as a walker. I'm going to stay crawling.
Yeah.
How you was something to envision that and step into that identity of, what does that look like before, we can't create something before we really have a clear idea of what that looks like first.
Yeah, for sure. And then for me, there's a part in there where like you do the work of dreaming, intending, vision, you come out and you take steps towards it every day. But for the most part, it's not sexy. It's kind of boring and you just go along, right? But check this out. You're going along, you're kind of cruising. And then all of a sudden it just goes up. Like something happens, there's exponential growth because you stack it and stack it and stack it. But the whole time it looks like, man, is this ever going to come to fruition? And then it just turns up after a while. So it's about showing up.
Totally. And a great example of this or metaphor of this is if you've ever like hiked, up a mountain, you're walking like through the forest or something, and it's a, not super steep and you're just kind of foot in front of foot and you don't know how long you've been walking for. You don't know how long you've been, how long left. It's just kind of, you're just following the path and you're just foot after foot. And there are times when you're like, oh my God, is this ever going to end? Am I getting anywhere? Have I gone around in circles? Did I take the right route? This looks familiar. Am I back to where I was? And then all of a sudden, you take a step and you're kind of like, is that a ledge? You look at it and you're like, there's a view. There's like, when did this happen? There's this like massive view and I'm like pretty much, at the top. And it's that kind of feeling where we, when you can see someone every day, a partner, a child or whatever, and you don't necessarily notice how they change because you're just seeing them every day. But if you were to, not see a friend for 10 years and then you'd see them be like, oh my God, wow, you've changed so much. It's that kind of thing, looking at ourselves that we're with ourselves 24/7. It's hard sometimes to see the change unless we take a moment to look back and be like, oh yeah, yeah, I was there and I am not there anymore. Like there has to have been growth in order to be where I'm at.
Love it. So for the overachievers, take a quick look over your shoulder. You don't have to stay there, but look over your shoulder and look how far you came before you go to the next. Uh,
Totally.
I ask everyone this question. So this is the phase 4 podcast, and phase 4 in the 6 phase meditation by Vishen Lakhiani is all about creating a future 3 years out. So where is Ben Milston 3 years from today?
Well, right now, my wife and daughter are kind of scouting the world, if you will, for our tribe community that we want to really root down in. We're currently in the east coast of Australia. We've got plans in a few months going to Portugal to check out some conscious communities over there. 3 years down the line, you know, we'll definitely have a piece of land. We'll be in a community, probably a few other families, and I really believe, you know, finding that balance between having my online coaching community and expanding on that sense, bringing my voice out to the world via the online, and also just expanding my roots down to the ground with family, creating some more space on some land, holding some men's circles, holding some, you know, space for people to come and heal and just experience things outside of what they consider normal. Because I think when we accept that we don't want normal isn't, you know, something we should be striving for, and there isn't really, you know, normal to begin with. You know, I don't even know what normal looks like, and it's not something that I want. Then when we get a taste of something outside of that, I think often that can help people to just take a taste of like, okay, there's more to this experience of life than I had previously thought. Let me just re-examine where I'm at and where I'm going.
I love that answer. That's awesome. I think let's talk about your coaching. We kind of danced around it, but let's go right into it. Tell us all about your coaching.
So essentially, I help people, as we said, you know, through depression, anxiety, through means that are different, alternative from mainstream conventional treatments, therapies, obviously, medication. Essentially, what my coaching works towards is understanding, as we touched on, the way that we think, the way that you perceive the world. Because when we understand why it is that you think the way that you think, why it is you believe the way that you believe, then we understand, well, why is it you feel this way? Why is it that these certain things trigger you and these certain things don't? Why do you get so triggered by that person and not that person? You know, there's reasons behind all that. And we want to uncover the reasons why and bring awareness into why we're feeling these things. So many people that I think I speak to, you know, they're like, you know, struggling with anxiety or depression, and say, why? You know, I just, no reason, it just came on, you know? And this idea of just, oh yeah, anxiety, it just came out of the blue. And really tapping into this idea that these heavy emotions don't come on out of the blue. There's a reason why we start experiencing certain things. And so I'll ask them, what's your thought patterns like? Oh, it's so negative and judgmental. And okay, well, that looks like a good indicator as to why we may be experiencing negativity or downness in our life, and go into depth there. So really wanting to uncover why essentially you are the person you are now. And we want to uncover, well, who is it that you want to essentially connect back into? Who is it behind all that? What are your values? What are your, you know, strengths? What are your things that light you up? What are the things that energize you, motivate you, make you happy? What is it that fulfills you? And then understanding where we're going, then we can start bridging the gap of, okay, let's speak about, and this depends on the type of person, because I don't think that there's, like you said, there's no cookie cutter for every type of person. But I work with, bringing in gratitude into our life and journaling into our life, uh, more awareness, more, even if it's like affirmations, and a lot of the things that people may have tried before, they haven't necessarily understood it to a great enough depth as to what they're doing. A lot of people will be like, I've tried meditation and it didn't work for me. So it's like, okay, well, how did you do it? I sat tried sitting for every day for 20 minutes and I just had too many thoughts. Like, well, of course you did. You've never meditated before. Like, you can't expect to be an incredible Buddhist meditator meditating, all of a sudden, like who creates habits out of like 20 minutes every day without any break, without any kind of, and so we want to say, okay, like how can we build up to these habits that if you want to meditate, great, let's start with 5 minutes and let's start with say 3 times a day. And when you miss a day, it's not because you're bad or you're wrong or how could you or how dare you. Like you've probably spent 40 years not meditating with different other beliefs. Like it makes sense that you're not going to feel like it. Well, bringing in like also accountability is a massive part of my program, because a lot of people think that they need to wait till they feel motivated to do things, right? But motivation doesn't just stay there all the time, 24/7. And it doesn't just necessarily appear. We want to understand what motivates us, but we also feel motivated by doing the things that are in alignment with us. A lot of times I won't be motivated to say exercise, but as soon as I start exercising, even for the first 30 seconds, it's like, oh yeah, this feels good, and then it's like, I never stop at 30 seconds of exercising. But if I can just like do 30 seconds of exercising, 100% of the time I do more. Yeah, it's just because it like feels good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a marathon. They have all the pylons, and it's like I don't think I can make it to the end, but I can probably get to that pylon. And then when I get there, I'll decide again. Okay, I think I can get up to those pylons, and then you just keep going. But I love this. So something in there is okay. So I'm guessing that the client, when they first start doing this work with you, they don't actually believe it. So your job is you come in and you hold that vision for them until they become the type of person that can step into that.
Well, essentially the first part of the program, and it's broken into like subsections or whatever, but essentially the first part of the program is helping to create the belief of possibility, of hope. For a lot of people coming to me, they'd been struggling with depression, anxiety for upwards of 10, 20, 30 years. And they've been on medications and different therapy and different this and different that, and nothing's worked. And so there's that belief that, well, nothing's worked, nothing is going to work, right? This kind of idea of, then it must be me. I must be uncurable. I must be unfixable. It must be me if no one else has been able to do anything. And so the first thing that we want to work on before doing anything is just create that bit of hope of, understanding, well, have you tried this approach? Well, no, they hadn't. All right. So there is a chance that this could be the approach that you've been looking for outside of everything else. I guess so. Yeah, sure. There's a chance. All right. So let's hold on to that chance. Let's hold on to that bit of hope, and then let's work on these ideas. Let's break down this idea of, do you really believe that nothing could work? Right? You've tried everything that there possibly is. All these like all or nothing situations. Oh, obviously I haven't tried everything. All right. So that there is a possibility that something out there could work. Have there been people who have struggled with something worse and more, more difficult than you that have made it successful and happy and fulfilled? Well, sure, there's heaps of examples of people who have, struggled with this and that. And like you said, losing the limb and turning their life around and all of that kind of thing. I was like, okay, great. So it's not that one person can do it and one person can't do it. It's that one person believes they can do it or not. And again, just going through the amount of examples out there of the doctors saying you're never going to walk again, and then, oh my God, it's a miracle, he does. Boom, you're the exact miracle. And it's like, yes, you're a miracle, but you believed that you could, and you weren't going to take the belief of the doctor who, I'm sorry to say, doctors get it wrong, you know? And so holding on to that belief enabled you to say, no, I'm not taking no for an answer. There's like, and one thing that really gets to me is this idea in like medicine of the placebo effect, where it's like, you know, we know what the placebo effect is, and we know that this placebo effect is literally people's belief, and then they heal themselves, and then they do these superhuman, supernatural events. Why aren't we looking into that more? Why isn't this bigger? Why aren't we being like, oh my God, the placebo is a thing? How do we take control of that in our own lives, rather than like, the placebo is a thing, let's find a different medicine that works differently.
Yeah, I love it. There's even a placebo surgery where they gave everyone the knee surgery. They cut them all open, and half the people got the surgery, the other half didn't. And like 2 years, they all got a scar, and they looked at their scar on their leg, thought they had the surgery, and 2 years later, everybody was in the same boat. All believe they got a surgery that make them better, and only half the people did.
Yeah, that's, and it's those types of things that I think, really get overlooked so easily, of just like, it was a fluke, it was luck, it was coincidence, it was a miracle, it was, and I think it's really important that we start taking a second to just be like, no, there is more to the power of our belief and the power of our thoughts than we give credit for. And if we can just take a second to give more credit and more power that it deserves to have, well, then we can hold on to what we're capable of, and what, the potential that we do have.
Yeah, I love it. Belief is so powerful. Like, man, if you believe you can, you can. If you believe you can't, you won't. And that surgery, that surgery is a W.B. Mosley. I don't know the first initials, but Mosley, if you want to check it out. And then there's also like just how placebo came about, right? I don't know, it was World War II. They ran out of morphine, so they just started giving people sugar water and saying like, here, this will help. And it did. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And so, it's so often done in like the healing powers of our own body. And it's so important to also recognize that, like, one, the healing powers of our body isn't refined to just the physical healing, and also the mental healing, the emotional healing, the past trauma, the childhood trauma, all that can be healed. And that's through the power of the mind as well. But also recognizing that and a lot of people will say like, I've been depressed since childhood. And then you look at what their thought patterns and belief systems have been like, and it's been the same since childhood. So they're been thinking the same things that they've been thinking since childhood. And so it makes sense that they've been reliving the same kinds of feelings and same kinds of, behaviors since then, because it's just perpetuating those feelings and essentially, what they feel is possible. The second that we open that door of possibility of, well, let's start thinking differently, let's start thinking greater to, our current reality, then that begins to open the door and bring in that bit of hope of, okay, well, then from today, if I was to start believing something differently, then in the future, I'll have created something differently. It's, that's just pure 1 + 1. So it's,
make it up. So they've been wiring themselves for depression over and over again. And then once they get to do the work with you, then they get the last part is dream intending, I call it. But you get to literally make it up. What do you want? Let's go create it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it.
As we begin to wind down, if this episode resonates with you, please like, subscribe, share, and follow. Reach out to Ben. We're going to leave all his information there. I think we got a new channel, new year, new YouTube channel. We were on Next Steps Academy before. Now it's just Phase 4 podcast. And Ben, I guess Before I kind of ask my final question, I always let the guests take it wherever they want. So if you have something to sell, sell it. If you have a message of hope or inspiration, or if you want to mix it all together, go right ahead.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things that I guess took from my own journey and that I've seen for so many people is just the understanding that if there is a life that you're unhappy with, unfulfilled in, that doesn't feel like that, that you feel like there should be more, that there could be more, you have no idea what's going on or why, or is this all, is this it kind of thing, that the the things that we really can be asking or mentioning is that it is it for what you've currently been thinking, but it doesn't need to be. We've been locked into this kind of familiar world and sense of, security for, well, this is it because it's always been it. It's been it up until now, but it doesn't need to be it. And, I would love to help show that to you and help prove it. There are so many people that I've worked with that have been struggling with things for 40 years. And when I ask them, why hasn't there been any change? It's because nothing with their thought patterns and belief systems have changed. And as soon as we start changing that, we start changing who you believe you are, what you believe is possible, what you believe, you're capable of. And as soon as that starts changing, well, everything else starts to open up, and everything else starts to just crumble under on the kind of limitations that have been given to you, have been conditioned in you from your upbringing, from society up until now. So I do want to, I do offer a completely complimentary 60-minute session to help people find clarity and direction with this, to just explain, what are the necessary steps that you can take to move forward with where you're at the moment. This is, a beautiful session to just kind of find the next stepping ground for you to help you get unstuck and really kind of see, okay, what's the next step that is possible in your direction of just healing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So again, that's a 60-minute complimentary session to figure it out and see if you guys are a good fit. On top of that, I believe you have some other freebies on your website, 3-step framework. What other
things? I've got an ebook there that's free. Super happy to give out to anyone that wants. That's just going through my kind of 3-step framework of understanding how to heal from depression and anxiety, rather than just learning to cope with it, rather than just learning to deal with it, or just, accept that this is how you are, but rather actually heal from the reasons behind what's causing those symptoms, which are depression, anxiety. That isn't the problem. Those are just the symptoms that come up from it. And I've also got a really beautiful Facebook community group that I'd like to invite you all to, that is just a really special place to connect with people who are experiencing similar things that you may be experiencing. One of the things with depression, anxiety is often it doesn't matter why we experience it. It's the feeling that we can relate to one another with. It's that feeling of emptiness, of hopelessness, of low, or just not understanding what's going on. This questioning, am I doing it right? Am I not doing it right? Am I good enough? All these types of feelings and thoughts. You're not the only one having these, and so this is a beautiful community to connect with people there. And I also offer completely free masterclass trainings once a week in there. I bring in guest hosts. So it's just a really special place to just learn and keep growing and keep healing.
That's so beautiful. So one thing I know for sure is important with the group aspect is that when you see other people, you realize, oh, I'm not alone. And it's really easy, depression, anxiety especially, to feel alone, to feel isolated. I know from my own experience. And I would just add one thing, that those thoughts, those are just clouds. And some days there's going to be gray clouds and rainy skies. And some days there'll be nice, big, white, puffy clouds. But the sun is always there behind it. And so you're the sun. And so if you're having those thoughts, just know that it's just clouds.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay, Ben, I'm so grateful for your time today. My final question is, how can people reach you?
Yeah, so like you said, you'll pop the links into wherever you go. You can check me out on my website at benmilston.com, or find me on Facebook or Instagram, Ben Milston, and would be more than happy to get in touch with you to just chat. I love connecting with people. I love just speaking to people and really getting to know why you're experiencing what you're experiencing, and any way that I can help you to step into a different life that makes you happier, more fulfilled, more at peace. I'd love to help support. So
Okay, Ben Milston, the Mindset Metamorphosis. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm so grateful. This was awesome.
thank you so much for having me. Yeah, this has been really a beautiful session. Thank you.